All right, so today we are really diving deep into letting go, the pathway of surrender. And the author, David R. Hawkins, he's, well, he's not your typical self-help guru.
No, not at all. I mean, this is a
Yeah.
guy who was a world-renowned psychiatrist, right?
Yeah.
He was dealing with some really, really intense stuff. But then he was also this incredible researcher who was super into consciousness, like the nature of reality itself.
Yeah, it's kind of wild when you think about it. I mean, you've got physics and spirituality all rolled into one.
And he wasn't afraid to ask the big questions either. But at the same time, he was still working with patients, like day in and day out, dealing with real-world problems.
And I think what really struck me about Hawkins was that he didn't buy into that whole quick fix mentality, you know?
Oh, absolutely. He was all about like real change, the kind that sticks.
Right.
And for him, that meant really getting up close and personal with, with our inner world, all that messy stuff.
Yeah, he doesn't sugarcoat it. He basically says we have to confront those difficult emotions head on.
Yeah. He's got this way of describing the modern world, and it's not always pretty. He talks about stress, negativity, this constant search for that magic pill solution.
It's so true. Like, we're always looking for that external answer,
Yeah.
right?
And he's saying, hold on a second. What if the answer isn't out there? What if it's an inside job?
And that really resonated with me because, I mean, who hasn't fallen into that trap thinking like, okay, if I could just find the right diet, the right job, the right relationship, then I'd finally be happy.
But Hawkins is saying, nope, that lasting peace, that deep sense of fulfillment, it comes from within.
Yeah, and that's where letting go comes in, right? That's like his big idea.
It's the core of his work. He's not saying go out and find all the answers. He's saying, no, untangle those knots of negative emotions you're carrying around inside.
So it's almost like the truth is already there. It's just buried under all that other stuff.
Exactly. And he's a big believer in self-discovery, those aha moments where you suddenly realize, wait, I have the answers within me.
Okay, but how do we access those answers?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. So Hawkins, he dives into this whole like breakdown of how our emotions work. And he doesn't just label them as like good or bad, right?
Right.
He gives this like neutral analysis of, okay, what's the function of this emotion? How's it impacting my life?
And he uses these really relatable examples. Like, there's this one story, I think he talks about losing his passport before a big
Oh,
trip.
yeah, and he was freaking out, right?
Mhm.
Ready to like move heaven and earth to find this passport.
Who hasn't been there?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then he realizes, he's like, wait a minute, I'm clinging to all this grief, this fear about missing the trip, and that's the real problem. Like, he's creating his own suffering.
So what does he do?
He decides to just let go of that grief, that fear, just like that. And what do you know? He suddenly remembers exactly where he left his passport.
Get out.
It's like that act of surrender just cleared a pathway in his mind.
Wow.
It's powerful stuff. And it illustrates this point he makes over and over again. Our emotions, especially the ones we try to bury, they don't just disappear, do they? They kind of fester and manifest in all these unhealthy ways, whether it's, self-sabotage or addictions or even physical ailments.
That's kind of scary when you think about it.
Yeah.
But it's also empowering because it means if we can understand like the why behind those emotions, then maybe we can start to choose differently.
It's like imagine a map,
Right.
right? But instead of showing you streets and cities, it charts levels of human consciousness. That's Hawkins' map of consciousness. It's like a ladder, basically, starting from lower levels of awareness and climbing all the way up to like higher states of being.
Okay, so it's not just theory. He actually maps this out.
Oh yeah, he uses this thing called kinesiological testing, and it gets pretty wild.
Okay, kinesiological testing. I'm going to be honest, that sounds a little woo-woo to me. Break it down.
So basically, it's a form of muscle testing. And what Hawkins found was that our bodies, they have these incredible, almost like subconscious reactions to different stimuli, whether it's thoughts or emotions, even things like, music or food.
So you're saying our bodies are giving us clues about like what's going on beneath the surface.
Yeah, exactly. Like a strong muscle response that usually suggests alignment with truth, with higher consciousness, but then a weak response that's often pointing to, falsehood or maybe lower levels of consciousness.
So it's like our bodies are mirroring our inner state, even if we're not consciously aware of it.
Exactly.
That's kind of wild. So it's not just me being like, oh, I feel good today, must be on a higher level. There's actually something to it.
Right, and that's what makes it so fascinating, because Hawkins found this to be true across the board, like regardless of people's personal beliefs,
Mm.
He's talking about an objective measurement of consciousness, which pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
Okay, so walk me through this map. What are some of the levels we're talking about here?
Okay, so at the very bottom, you've got shame, guilt, apathy. These are like states of low energy, feeling powerless, kind of stuck in that cycle of negativity.
Mm.
And then as you climb the ladder, you start encountering, fear, desire, anger. There's more energy here, but it's still very much driven by the ego, that sense of separation from like everything and everyone around you.
So what's at the top? Like, what does that peak experience look like on the map of consciousness?
That's where courage hangs out. It's that point where we break free from, those limitations, those I can't tapes that are playing on repeat in our minds. This is the I can level.
I love that. So we hit courage, then what? What's next on this climb?
Neutrality. This is where we start to release that death grip on control, that need to micromanage every little thing.
So it's not just about letting go of the negative stuff. It's also about letting go of the need to control our emotions, to force ourselves to be happy all the time.
Exactly.
Wow.
Then we hit willingness. Think like openness, adaptability, embracing change instead resisting it with everything you've got.
Okay.
And then from there, we reach acceptance. This is huge. We're talking about making peace with ourselves, with the world around us, no more judgment, just pure acceptance of what is.
That sounds incredibly peaceful. Like you finally reached the eye of the storm after being tossed around in all that chaos.
Exactly. And it's from that foundation of acceptance that we
Yeah.
can access those really high vibe levels, like reason, love, joy, peace, and ultimately enlightenment.
Okay. Enlightenment. That's like the holy grail of personal growth,
It
right?
really is.
Yeah.
It's about like realizing our true nature,
Mhm.
that understanding that we're all interconnected, that we're not separate. Like it's the ultimate liberation from suffering, from all that stuff that keeps us up at night.
Wow, that's deep. But let's be real. How many people actually reach that level? Are we talking about a handful of monks meditating on a mountaintop?
Well, yeah, very few people reach full enlightenment in this lifetime, let's be honest. But here's the thing, and this is what's so encouraging about Hawkins' work. He really believed that we all have the capacity to move up this ladder. It's a journey, and letting go is like our compass, our guide along the way.
Speaking of journeys, I keep coming back to those stories of Hawkins using, letting go to heal himself. It's like he wasn't just talking the talk, he was walking the walk.
Oh, yeah, he was living it. He had his own struggles, too, chronic illnesses, he dealt with chronic pain, all sorts of stuff.
Didn't he talk about being, scheduled for surgery at one
Yeah.
point?
And then he decides to, really test out his own teachings. Talk about putting your money where your mouth is.
That takes guts. So what happened?
Well, he describes this intense experience of surrendering, completely letting go during this really severe diverticulitis attack. And he was in agony, but he refused to fight it. He just surrendered. The bleeding stopped, just like that.
Whoa.
It's amazing, right? Talk about the mind-body connection. It's like he really believed our thoughts and beliefs have this direct impact on our physical health.
And he had the experiences to back it up, right? I mean, remember that story about his broken foot?
Oh, man. Yeah. Healing a broken bone without a cast, just by applying those principles of letting go. Come on, that's next level healing.
And then there's that whole story about his eyesight, right? He's giving this lecture talking about all this powerful stuff, and someone in the audience basically calls him out, like, hey, if you can heal all this other stuff, why are you still wearing glasses?
Busted.
Right. But it's like that question sparked something in him.
Totally. It was like he'd been so focused on healing other areas of his life that he hadn't even realized he was holding on to this belief that he needed glasses to see.
It's crazy how sneaky those limiting beliefs can be. We don't even realize we're holding ourselves back. So what did he do?
Well, he decided to experiment, right? He started applying letting go to his vision, but it wasn't just about seeing the eye chart better. It was about examining all that emotional baggage we attach to seeing, all those judgments, desires, insecurities, the whole shebang.
And his vision improved.
Yeah, he wasn't, suddenly tossing out his glasses and claiming perfect vision, but he was seeing more clearly, both literally and metaphorically. It was like he was saying, look, we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are.
Okay, so we've established this whole letting go thing is pretty powerful stuff, but how do we actually do it? Give us the inside scoop. How do we make it happen in our own lives?
It's not like, trying to shut off our emotions completely or becoming some kind of Zen robot or something. It's about becoming the master of our inner world.
Okay, so less autopilot, more like a conscious pilot, right? And I'm into it. But how do we actually make that shift? How do we go from feeling totally overwhelmed by our emotions to actually, choosing how we respond?
Well, Hawkins, he breaks it down into this process that's surprisingly simple, but also really powerful. And the first step is awareness. Like, you have to become aware of what you're actually feeling in any given moment. But here's the thing. It's about noticing without judgment.
So it's like hitting the pause button on that inner commentary that's always running in the background and just being like, okay, what's going on in here?
Exactly. But then comes the step that I think most people try to skip, which is acknowledging the feeling. And I don't mean trying to change it. I don't mean trying to fix it. Just acknowledging, okay, this is here.
You know, that's way harder than it sounds, especially when it's something uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? Our instinct is to like run in the opposite direction when we feel those things.
Totally. And that's where surrender comes in. And that can be a tough one, right? Because it sounds counterintuitive. But the more we resist our emotions, like, the stronger they get.
It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater.
Yes, you're fighting a losing battle.
So instead of trying to hold that beach ball down, we just let go.
Yes, let go of the resistance and just watch what happens. That feeling, it might intensify for a moment, but then it starts to, like, lose its grip. It doesn't have that same power over you anymore.
It's like we create space for that emotion to, move through us rather than getting stuck.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. And as we surrender, we create that space to choose our response. Like, we're not at the mercy of our emotions anymore. We actually have a say in how we react, how we experience those feelings.
So it's not about becoming emotionless. It's about choosing how we respond to what we're feeling.
Exactly. It's about, like, becoming conscious creators of our inner world.
Yeah.
And then what's really cool is that Hawkins, he talks about how that inner transformation, it naturally ripples out into our outer world as well.
One thing that I really appreciate about Hawkins' work is his emphasis on personal responsibility.
Yeah.
He doesn't sugarcoat it. He basically says, look, you have the power to choose, and that choice, it determines your experience.
Yeah. He's like, stop playing the victim. Stop blaming everyone and everything else for your unhappiness. You're the one in the driver's seat.
It's both empowering and a little terrifying.
Right. Totally. It's like, wait a minute. I'm in charge here.
Yeah.
It's a big wake-up call.
But that's the thing. He's saying, look, we have this incredible power within us, but we give it away so easily. We give it to our egos, to our fears, to like the opinions of other people. And he's reminding us to reclaim that power, to step into our own authority.
And that's where I think the concept of intention comes in, right? Because Hawkins, he talks about our intentions being like these seeds that we plant. Yes. He uses this analogy of a garden, and it's so powerful. Like, if you plant seeds of negativity, fear, doubt, resentment, guess what? That's what you're going to get. But if you plant seeds of, love, joy, gratitude, watch your world transform.
So it's not just about wishful thinking. It's about like aligning our thoughts, our actions, everything with those positive intentions we're putting out there.
Exactly. And that's where I think letting go plays such a crucial role.
Yeah.
Because, like, by releasing those negative patterns, those limiting beliefs, we create the fertile ground for those positive intentions to really take root and flourish.
I love that. It's like we're clearing out the weeds so that, the flowers can actually bloom.
Yeah.
It's interesting because Hawkins, he doesn't shy away from that spiritual dimension either.
Yeah.
He talks about surrendering to a higher power, about like aligning with something greater than ourselves.
Yeah. He acknowledges that we're not just like these physical beings going through the motions. We have this spiritual essence. And when we can connect with that, it's like coming home after a really, really long journey.
Just like everything just clicks into place.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into letting go, what would you say is like the one thing you hope listeners take away from Hawkins' work?
You have the power to choose. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are a creator of your reality. And the key to unlocking that creative power, to really stepping into the driver's seat of your life, it all comes down to letting go. Let go of what's holding you back, the fear, the doubt, those limiting beliefs. Let go of the need to control, the need to be right. Yeah. Just let go and allow yourself to be free.
It's a journey of self-discovery. It's about peeling back those layers to reveal like the most authentic version of ourselves. And the amazing thing is, as we let go, as we do that inner work, it doesn't just transform our own lives, it ripples outward. It creates a more joyful, peaceful, loving world for everyone. So on that note, we'll leave you with this final thought. What will you choose to let go of today?